An interesting theory about the conclusion of the third season of Squid Game suggests that Gi-Hun might become the next front man, not because he is forced, but because he deeply understands the system and believes the games are far from over. After everything that has happened, his victory in the games, the loss of his mother, and confrontations with the organization during the second season, Gi-Hun might conclude that fighting against something so deeply ingrained in the world is nearly impossible. Following the events of his rebellion in the second season of Squid Game, Gi-Hun, according to this theory, enters the third season with a mix of guilt and a thirst for revenge. His attempt to take down the organization, although well-intentioned, was marked by recklessness. He endangered innocent lives trying to expose the system, and even though his goal was noble, the consequences of his actions left deep scars. Many of those he tried to save ended up as victims, and his mission's failure not only reinforced the organization's strength but also fueled his frustration and trauma. This theory also suggests that Gi-Hun is deeply shaken by the execution of his best friend, carried out in front of him by the front man, In-ho. This moment not only solidified his hatred for the organization but also opened a new path in his mind. He does not only seek to end the games but also to avenge the pain they caused. From that point on, Gi-Hun shows that his fight is not just against the games but also against those who allowed them to destroy his life. The theory argues that, reflecting on the consequences of his rebellion, Gi-Hun realizes how impulsive he was. His act of courage endangered lives and strengthened the system he swore to dismantle. He begins to understand that acting so emotionally and hastily only benefits the organization. This realization is a turning point as it leads him to reconsider his approach and develop a more calculated plan. According to this theory, the front man, In-ho, plays a crucial role at this moment. In-ho confronts Gi-Hun directly, pointing out that his rebellion not only failed but also put more people in danger. These interactions, as tense and filled with hatred as they may be, plant a doubt in Gi-Hun. Is it really possible to end the games? Or is the only way to make an impact by assuming a position within the system? From there, Gi-Hun begins to consider infiltration as a possibility. His desire for revenge and justice guides his actions, but he understands that to destroy the system from within, he will have to become part of it. The theory suggests that throughout the third season, Gi-Hun dangerously approaches the role of frontman, believing it is the only way to finally achieve his goal, even if it places him in a deep moral dilemma. Once Gi-Hun accepts the idea of infiltrating the system, his journey takes a darker turn. He realizes that to gain the organization's trust and eventually the VIPs, he will have to adopt a stance that goes against his principles. The theory suggests that throughout the third season, Gi-Hun begins to show signs of transformation, both internally and externally, as he tries to balance his desire for revenge with the need to manipulate the system. He begins to take actions that, at other times, he would have considered unthinkable. During a new edition of the games, Gi-Hun observes and analyzes every detail, not only to understand the system's flaws but also to begin implementing small sabotages. These sabotages, however, need to be subtle, as any mistake could expose his intentions. A key moment in this theory would be Gi-Hun secretly intervening to save certain players he sees as useful pieces for his long-term plan, while allowing others to be eliminated, a move that reinforces his determination but also erodes his morality. Simultaneously, the current front man, In-ho, closely monitors Gi-Hun, intrigued by his ability to adapt and accomplish difficult tasks. According to the theory, In-ho sees in Gi-Hun something he once saw in himself, a mix of resistance and potential. This could lead to moments of tension between the two, where In-ho tries to convince Gi-Hun to fully embrace the system, arguing that he is already becoming a part of it, whether he likes it or not. As the season progresses, Gi-Hun earns the trust of the VIPs and the organization, gradually being introduced to deeper secrets of the games. The theory suggests that at this point, he faces a critical dilemma: continue pretending loyalty to the system while plotting his revenge, or succumb to the idea that the games, in fact, serve a greater purpose, as In-ho believes. This ambiguity keeps the tension high, with the audience questioning whether Gi-Hun will truly destroy the games or be consumed by them. At the season's climax, Gi-Hun is finally put to the test. After demonstrating his competence and loyalty, he is officially invited to assume the mantle of frontman, replacing In-ho, who appears to have planned this from the beginning. Gi-Hun's acceptance is accompanied by a scene filled with symbolism, representing his complete immersion into the system system he so despised, but also a silent promise that he will use this position to achieve his true objectives. After officially assuming the role of frontman, Gi-Hun finds himself at the heart of the game's operations. He now has full access to the organization's decisions and the VIP's trust. According to the theory, this is when his infiltration strategy truly begins to take shape. While apparently aligned with the system, Gi-Hun begins using his position to manipulate and corrode the structure of the games. His first action as frontman is to start implementing subtle changes in the game's functioning. He modifies rules and introduces variables that increase chaos and unpredictability, jeopardizing the perfection that the organization values so much. Simultaneously, he begins using insider information to seek allies among discontented workers or surviving players. These allies become key pieces in his plan to sabotage the games from within. A highlight of the theory would be Gi-Hun orchestrating an edition of the games where the VIPs themselves are placed in vulnerable situations, either by exposing their identities or manipulating the outcomes so they experience the terror they cause. This twist would create a peak moment of tension, where Gi-Hun finally confronts the elite responsible for the suffering he despises. However, Gi-Hun's greatest internal conflict arises when he realizes that his actions, even with the aim of destroying the system, begin to mirror the organization's practices. By manipulating lives to achieve his goal, he questions whether he is truly acting for justice or being consumed by his desire for revenge. At the season's climax, Gi-Hun activates a plan that causes near total destruction of the system, exposing the games to the world and dismantling much of the operation. However, the cost is enormous. Gi-Hun sacrifices all that remains of his identity and humanity to achieve this goal, becoming a symbol of resistance but also a tragic figure. The season ends with an ambiguous scene. Gi-Hun, masked as the front man, watches the organization's collapse, his expression a mix of relief and emptiness. He has achieved his revenge and brought justice to many, but at the cost of becoming part of the system he hated so much. The question remains, did he completely destroy the games, or will something survive, ready to rise again? In another version of this theory, Gi-Hun might, at the end of the third season of Squid Game, not only become the front man but also fully embrace the system of the games, perpetuating the cycle he vowed to destroy. In this version, Gi-Hun begins his journey infiltrating the organization with the intention of destroying it. However, as the season progresses, he comes to understand the game's functioning on a deeper level. In-ho, the current front man, guides him through this process, arguing that the games are more than just entertainment for the VIPs. They represent an escape for desperate and indebted people, a last chance to change their lives, albeit at an extreme cost. Gi-Hun resists accepting this view but, while observing the system as the front man, begins to see parallels between the games and his old habit of betting on horse races. Just like the players, he was once someone who risked everything for the promise of victory. He realizes that, at its core, the games are an extension of how society operates. The rich watch as the poor risk their lives, and the system perpetuates itself because there are always those willing to participate. As this perspective takes shape, Gi-Hun gradually abandons his idea of destroying the games. He accepts them as inevitable, a brutal reflection of the world's inequality. At this point, Gi-Hun not only assumes the role of frontman but does so consciously, believing that as part of the system, he can manage it fairly within its own rules. In this version's ending, Gi-Hun is shown overseeing a new edition of the games, watching the players with the same indifference as the VIPs. His transformation is complete. He is no longer the rebel trying to destroy the system but a figure who believes in the game's operation and perpetuates them, accepting them as a cruel and efficient inevitability. This version suggests a dark and ironic ending, showing how even the staunchest opponents of the system can be consumed by it. If you enjoyed this theory about Squid Game and want more content like this, leave a like. It helps us bring more incredible analyses and theories to you. Don't forget to click on the next video appearing on the screen. There's more about the Squid Game universe and other series you'll love.